So there was a pretty interesting article the other day coming from Yahoo Japan talking to Mr. Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of Super Smash Bros. And Kirby, and he talked about potential use of AI in gaming when it comes to big development AAA games and all that. And that, of course, sent the internet into a tizzy because of, you guessed it, a mistranslation or taking what he said out of context. Now, I originally covered the story, but after the news kind of broke that there was some things taken out of context and people started adjusting and deleting their tweets and things like that and saying my bad, I was like, all right, hold up. Let me just wait on this one. And once we get an accurate, good, actual translation from people who are good at this and not using Google Translate, then I'll talk about it and kind of go into my own personal thoughts on what Mr. Masahiro Sakurai had to say. Shoutouts to Source Gaming. They actually had all of this on Twitter, so I'm going to read it in terms of what they had to say. Recently, Sakurai was interviewed by Yahoo Japan, where he commented on the use of Gen AI or generative AI in game production. We've seen several comments and translations that took his words out of context, and as such, we wanted to provide our own translation with full context for his statement. The translation was handled by Push Destin and reviewed by our translators, Brando and Cody Nicolo. We've translated both the question and the answer in order to supply as much context as possible. We'll also be posting this on our website shortly. It says, Yahoo Japan's question. Game development is becoming increasingly large-scale, specialized, and segmented. At the same time, the market for indie games made by individuals or small teams is also expanding. What is your perspective on the future of the gaming market? Here's Sakurai's answer. To be honest, it's hard to see what the future holds. I think we've reached a point where creating large-scale games like we do now is too time-consuming and unsustainable. I feel that things can't continue this way, but the only effective solution I think of at the moment is generative AI. I believe that we are at a stage where we must change our methods, such as by using generative AI to improve work efficiency. It seems that only companies that can adapt well to these changes will survive in the coming era. Now, there's also a Source Gaming editor note here. It says, we think it's important to not extrapolate any additional meaning to Sakurai's thoughts as Gen AI, as he's seemingly just using it as an example. He doesn't say that he's using it himself, and he doesn't give any examples on how to use it. He gives a vague improves productivity response. So that's essentially it. People were trying to claim that, oh, now he's going to be using it for Kirby Air Riders or for the next Super Smash Brothers. To me, I've never been one of those crazy people when it comes to AI. I know that people don't like it. I know that it takes jobs from people, and it's something that I'm definitely looking at and saying, okay, I definitely don't want that, but I'm not exactly sure how they're going to be using it or how companies are going to use it. It's really different from person to person when it comes down to it. So based on what Sakurai said here, there's no cause for concern, at least from what I'm looking at. He was simply asked a question and he said, hey, well, here's what I think on this, because we're already seeing developers use AI in all sorts of ways. Heck, even that one game, Foam Stars from Square Enix, that had some AI art done as well, but with a lot of regular work done too. So I do think that he's essentially just giving his opinion on that. Now, we'll see what happens with his own games in terms of everything, but for right now, people were taking that and kind of spinning it in different types of ways when he was asked about that and his opinion, considering how crazy the video game industry is getting when it comes to the size of the games and how long it's taking to make the games. So we'll see what happens in the future, but also we'll see what happens for all those who are not subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want the best Nintendo Switch 2 content. So hit that sub button, hit that like button, and let me know what your favorite Masahiro Sakurai Super Smash Bros. Game is, or your favorite game that he's produced. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here, talking about Persona 4 Revival and Stranger Than Heaven from Sega and Atlas. So shout out to my man Stealth on this one. Sega has confirmed that Persona 4 Revival and Stranger Than Heaven will not be releasing until in or after FY 2027. So that'll be 2026 and then 2027. So 2 years at least for both of these games. I think that they probably announced Persona 4 Revival way too early. But on the good side, I would say that that gives them plenty of time to get a Nintendo Switch 2 version ready to go right at launch as the other versions, and also gives them time to release Persona 6 and probably Metaphor ReFantazio on Switch 2 and Persona 3 Reload on Switch 2. So I do think that there is plenty of time in between to get other games in and to potentially have some surprises and secrets for us when it comes to other titles from Atlas. But yeah, Persona 4 Revival, to me, I want to focus on that one. I think they kind of announced it way too early. I'm not even sure why they announced it this early. Maybe because they can just get the announcement out there because people have been asking for it, or whatever the case is, but I'm not exactly sure why they even announced it. But Persona 4 Revival, that's a game that obviously I'm looking forward to playing because I love Persona 4 Golden. I think Persona 4 is a fantastic RPG. It is really long at times, but that's how Persona games are, and there's a lot of content in the game, so you definitely get your value's worth. But I've pretty much purchased Persona 4 and played it so many times at this point. I'm looking forward to actually playing a new version of it later down the line. So I'm not really too upset that this game is going to take longer than maybe what some would have thought. But based off that debut trailer, yeah, I kind of knew that it probably wasn't any time close overall. But what do you guys think about what Sega had to say here about Persona 4 Revival and Stranger Than Heaven? Let me know in the comment section below. But let's check out this next topic because this one was very funny. There was a Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Nintendo Switch 2 edition, a billboard in London's like subway or train station that said out now at this point, and that was incorrect. It was not out now. Obviously, it's not out now. And VGC, they took a picture of it and it was kind of a thing. But really what happened was Mario Kart World had the out now, and somebody in the graphics department for the billboards forgot to actually change it because the real thing is supposed to say 2025, which is the accurate one. It looked like somebody just slapped the out now over the 2025 because they had the same design when it comes like to the tires or whatever Mario Kart World had. So that's been fixed at this point and everything is good. Mario Kart is out now, of course, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is coming out in 2025. Now, the big thing about this is people are wondering when exactly in 2025 is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond coming out. And I think I have an idea of when it's coming out. We are currently in the end of June as of the time that I'm recording this video. July, we already have Donkey Kong Bonanza on the 17th. So that's less than a month from now. So I do think that the game is going to come out in August. So I do believe that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond will be coming out in August at this point. But I do think that they're also going to have a Nintendo Direct sometime before that to announce the release date, and then to also announce Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are also coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 at some point. Maybe in a double pack like they did with Pikmin, or maybe just released individually. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do it, but double pack and just 1080p 60 or whatever seems like it's very likely to me, considering they already remastered Metroid Prime, and I don't think they're going to take the time to really remaster it as heavily as they did with Metroid Prime, the original. But we'll see. I mean, they could eventually, they could just say, hey, look, we got Metroid Prime 2 and 3, and both of them are remastered to the quality of Metroid Prime 1 on the Switch, but we'll see exactly how they end up doing that. But I'm just looking forward to the game. It was originally announced in 2017, so it's been 8 years at this point. They had to scrap it, restart development, but I think that's what's best for this game. You don't want to have a game when it comes to Metroid that comes out and it ends up not being good. We saw what happened with Metroid Other M, although I do like some aspects of the game. It kind of set things back quite a bit, and it was discounted very quickly. You want Metroid Prime to be that type of game, that high quality, that 90 plus rated that we're used to. So I do think that Metroid Prime, when it comes to the mainline games, Metroid Prime 1, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, all those are 90 plus rated. You got to keep that tradition. You got to keep that quality up overall. So make sure that the game comes out and it's really good. And I think that this could also be the breakthrough sales Metroid game outside of obviously Metroid Dread. That did incredible. But Metroid Prime 4 Beyond launching on Switch 1 and Switch 2, there's going to be a massive healthy install base to pick up this game. So I think that this could actually be the super breakthrough game for the Metroid Prime series, where we see 4-5 million units for this title, considering the huge install base across the Nintendo Switch 1 and the growing install base of the Nintendo Switch 2. So what do you guys think about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond finally getting its banner fixed in the train station? Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move to an interesting thing when it comes to indie developers and Switch 2 dev kits for them, because there hasn't been a ton of big indie games or new type of indie titles on the Nintendo Switch 2 a lot of it is backwards compatible, and there might be some reasoning for that based off of what's being said here in a recent article. So Game Industry published a feature about indie games on the Switch 2, or the lack of the indie games on the Switch 2, and one developer believes that Nintendo is holding back Switch 2 development kits for indie creators that need more power and for whose work could not be accomplished on the original Nintendo Switch 1 console. For example, No Man's Sky, which got a development kit early and had a successful launch, but unfortunately others have not been so lucky. Hopefully demand is eventually met with the supply. Now, Mr. Gallon here thinks that in terms of sending out Switch 2 dev kits, Nintendo's prioritizing titles that wouldn't be doable on the previous console, saying, quote, "The indie folks I know who have been successful in getting kits are working on games that are in need of the Switch 2's extra oomph," he says. "I believe due to the comprehensive backwards compatibility," he continues, Nintendo's current priority is providing kits for the titles that don't have the OG Switch version in the works. At least that was the impression I got when we reached out about Into the Relentless Ruins. So yeah, it does seem like Nintendo's trying to kind of curate things a little bit when it comes to the development kits with indie developers. A lot of the games are backwards compatible and play just fine on the Nintendo Switch 1, but games like Fast Fusion, for example, or No Man's Sky, the games that have a bit more when it comes to the graphical prowess of the system, they're kind of getting a bit more of a priority at this point compared to some of the other developers. Now we'll see if that actually continues, or more like how far or how long that will continue, because things do have to be curated a little bit. I know one thing that Nintendo definitely doesn't want to see again, at least with Nintendo Switch 2, is a lot of the shovelware that was just flooding the system so fast overall. Like, it started getting really bad probably at the end of 2018 or mid 2018 or so, 2019. I'm thinking that Nintendo definitely wants to make sure that that doesn't happen at a high speed or a high pace overall. The Switch 1 already has enough issues with that, but they've made some tweaks in order to kind of stop that from happening, or more like that being front and center. But if you look at the upcoming releases, it's like all over on the Switch 1. So Switch 2 definitely seems a bit more tame overall, although there is the backwards compatibility, so you can easily buy it on Switch 1 if you want to, so you can see all of that. But yes, the upcoming releases were definitely cluttered overall, so we'll see what happens with that going forward. Obviously, independent developers are very important in terms of the games that they make and everything. That's got to be a priority to make sure that they get them kits in due time or whenever they need them overall for certain types of games. Obviously, No Man's Sky is doing fantastic on the Nintendo Switch 2. The upgrade, it's selling really good so far, so I think that's kind of what he was looking at here overall with it. But I do think eventually things will kind of level out, and just like Nintendo Switch 1, a lot of these independent developers will be able to get their kits and get everything when they need it. Now, there's one development team, it's not necessarily, I guess, like an indie team, but still a smaller team that I hope already has dev kits or are working with Nintendo to get dev kits, and that's definitely Samfall Interactive, man. I need to see Expedition 33 on the Nintendo Switch 2 as soon as possible with a very good port of the game. So hopefully Nintendo has something when it comes to Samfall, or they're looking into that. I know they've talked about they've got a plethora of different opportunities that's kind of came up about them considering the success of the game. So I think that's going to be awesome. Obviously, that's pretty cool, but hopefully a Nintendo Switch 2 version is in the works as well when it comes down to it. So what do you guys think when it comes to everything that we talked about here? There was a lot from Mr. Sakurai and what he had to say to what's kind of going on with the Persona 4 revival situation and Nintendo Metroid Prime 4, what's happening there. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.